The spies in Canaan. The sun dipped low over the wilderness, painting the horizon with crimson and gold as the people of Israel set their camp. The desert stretched behind them, vast and merciless, but before them lay the land that God had promised to their fathers. It was the land of Canaan, a place flowing with milk and honey, a land that had been spoken of since the days of Abraham. Every heart stirred with anticipation, yet also with questions. What awaited them beyond the Jordan? Moses, their leader, heard the murmurings among the people. They wanted to know what lay ahead, what kind of land it was, and what kind of people lived there. Seeking the Lord's guidance, Moses listened as God permitted him to send men to spy out the land. These men would bring back a report, not to test God's promise, but to prepare the people for the inheritance awaiting them. 12 men were chosen, one from each tribe of Israel. Their names were spoken before the assembly, but 2 stood out above the rest: Joshua, son of Nun, from the tribe of Ephraim, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, from the tribe of Judah. The people watched as the 12 gathered, prepared, and received instructions from Moses. Moses told them to go up through the Negev and into the hill country. He instructed them to see what the land was like, whether the people who lived there were strong or weak, few or many. They were to observe whether the land was good or bad, whether the cities were fortified or open. He asked them to bring back some of the fruit of the land, for the season of harvest had come. With these words, the 12 spies set out, their silhouettes fading into the rugged hills. Behind them a nation waited with hope and anxiety, their future tied to the report these men would bring. The journey was long and dangerous. They moved silently through valleys and climbed steep ridges, their eyes ever watchful. Soon they reached the land of Canaan, and what they saw amazed them. The fields were rich with crops, the soil fertile, and the hills covered with vineyards and fig trees. They saw streams of water flowing through the land, making it lush and fruitful. It was indeed a land of abundance, a land flowing with milk and honey. But the spies also saw the inhabitants of the land. The Canaanites were strong, their cities walled and fortified. They saw the Anakim, people of great stature who seemed like giants. Their strength was intimidating, and the spies felt small in comparison. Each night around their fires, the men whispered their fears. Some began to doubt whether Israel could take such a land, even with God's promises. In the valley of Eshcol, the spies cut a branch with a single cluster of grapes so large that 2 men carried it on a pole between them. They also took pomegranates and figs as evidence of the land's richness. The sight of the fruit was a marvel, proof of God's faithfulness to his word. For 40 days, the spies explored Canaan, from the wilderness of Zin to the northern reaches near Lebo Hamath. They saw great opportunities, but also great challenges. Their hearts wrestled between faith and fear, between trust in God's promises and reliance on their own strength. When their mission ended, they returned to the camp of Israel at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. The people gathered eagerly to hear their report, eyes wide with expectation. The spies held up the fruit of the land, and a murmur of amazement swept through the crowd. Surely this was a land of promise. The report began with agreement. "We went to the land to which you sent us," they said. "It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit." The people smiled with joy, hope rising in their hearts. But the report did not end there. The majority of the spies continued, their voices heavy with dread. "Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. We saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites live by the sea and along the Jordan." Fear rippled through the crowd. Whispers turned into gasps, and hope began to crumble. But Caleb, seeing the despair spread, silenced the people before Moses. His voice rang clear with conviction. "Let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it." The crowd stilled, caught between fear and faith, but the other spies contradicted Caleb. We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. We saw giants there, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in theirs." The words of fear took hold of the people like wildfire. That night the camp was filled with weeping and despair. The voices of the multitude rose in complaint against Moses and Aaron. "If only we had died in Egypt, or if only we had died in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and children will become prey. Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt?" They even spoke of choosing a new leader to take them back to the land of bondage. Their faith crumbled under the weight of fear, and their trust in God's promise vanished. Joshua and Caleb tore their clothes in grief and addressed the assembly. "The land we pass through is exceedingly good. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land flowing with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them." But the congregation's hearts were hardened. Instead of listening, they spoke of stoning Joshua and Caleb. Their words revealed the depth of their rebellion, their unwillingness to trust the God who had brought them so far. At that moment the glory of the Lord appeared at the tabernacle. His presence silenced the crowd, and his anger burned against their unbelief. God said to Moses, "How long will these people reject me? How long will they not believe me, with all the signs I have performed among them?" The Lord spoke of striking them with pestilence and disinheriting them, making of Moses a greater nation. But Moses interceded, pleading for mercy. He reminded God of his covenant love and how his name was known among the nations. If Israel perished, the nations would say the Lord was not able to bring them into the land he promised. Moses prayed that God would pardon the people according to his great mercy. God listened to Moses and forgave, but judgment still came. The generation that had murmured and rejected the promise would not enter the land. For 40 years they would wander in the wilderness, 1 year for each day the spies spent in Canaan. Only Joshua and Caleb, who had believed, would live to enter the promised land. The spies, who spread the bad report, were struck down by a plague before the Lord. Their voices of fear were silenced, a warning to all who doubted his power. The people, realizing their sin, mourned greatly. In presumption, some tried to go up into the land without God's blessing, but they were defeated by their enemies. Their attempt showed that faith cannot be replaced with human effort once disobedience has hardened into rebellion. The story of the spies in Canaan became a lasting lesson for Israel. It revealed how quickly fear can overwhelm faith, how murmuring can destroy hope, and how rebellion can cost an entire generation its destiny. It also revealed the beauty of steadfast trust. For Joshua and Caleb stood as beacons of courage and conviction, examples of those who held fast to God's promises despite overwhelming odds. In later generations, the psalmists would recall this story, warning not to harden hearts as at Kadesh. The New Testament would echo the same truth, urging believers to live by faith and not shrink back in fear. The memory of the spies reminded God's people that his promises are sure, but they must be embraced with trust. Even now the story speaks. Each heart must choose between the voices of the 10 who saw giants and the voices of the 2 who saw God. Each life faces moments where fear seems greater than faith, where the obstacles appear insurmountable. The lesson remains clear. Trust in the God who has already delivered, who has already promised, and who is faithful to fulfill his word. The land of promise still awaits, not just for Israel in ancient times, but for all who follow God today. The question remains the same. Will you believe the report of fear, or will you trust the promise of the Lord?